Chapter 20. TJ. Key? Ginger said. To the church, Francie repeated. Ginger said. Ginger! Francie snapped. Are you drunk? No, she slumped into a chair. It's TJ. What? Francie asked. What's happened? I don't know, Ginger said. He's gone. He hasn't come home. Oh, God. I've been out looking. I just came in now to get a different flashlight. The batteries are going on this one. When is the last time you saw him? He was home for dinner, and I thought he went to bed. Well, did he? Well, you can see for yourself. Ginger led them to a modest room at the back of the cabin. The single bed had been tidily made, just one corner of the covers turned back, with a small and dirty indent on the pillow. Next to the bed stood a small side table on which teetered a baseball-themed lamp and a tall stack of old National Geographics. TJ's clothes hung neatly in the closet. Tidy kid, Nels remarked. Yes, he's kind of organized, Ginger said. Isn't it odd that he's such a dirtball? Francie mused. How is this helping us? Ginger wailed. We should be looking for him. You're right, Francie said, but I'm just trying to think where he might be. Her eyes landed on a door, which she crossed to and opened. There's a door to the outside in his room, she noted. Yeah, Ginger said. I suppose he just pretended to go to bed and then got up and left. But why? Ginger, Francie said. He could go out often without you noticing, couldn't he? Yes. And he does, doesn't he? Yes, Ginger mumbled. You were out looking for him the other day when I came by this way from that party at the Fredericksons. Francie stole a quick glance at Nels, who was thumbing through the stack of magazines. Yes. Ginger sank onto the bed and buried her face in the pillow. But this is the latest he's ever stayed out. What time is it? Francie asked Nels. He looked at his phone. After 1. Where does he go? Ginger shook her head and sobbed into the pillow. I don't know. I don't press him. I just figured he needed time to sort everything out. Plus, he wasn't bugging me, so I didn't really care what he did. Oh, I'm a terrible sister. You're doing fine, Ginger, Francie comforted her. Hey, I ran around like a wild banshee when I was a kid. It was glorious to have so much freedom. Every kid should have a place like this. Yeah, but when we were kids, it was safe. People weren't getting killed left and right. So you don't think these deaths have been accidental either? Yet Nels asked. Yes. No. I don't know, Ginger wailed. What's happened to him? Oh, it's all my fault. Should we call the police? Nels asked. Ginger bit her lip. Not yet. Francie tried to convey in a glance to Nels that the whole police thing was complicated for Ginger. Francie could only imagine how hard it would be, given that the sheriff was convinced Ginger's mom had killed her husband. All they can do is look, just like us, Ginger added. They might not do anything until daylight anyway, Nels said. He spun the flashlight in his hand like a gunslinger with a 6-shooter. Let's go, partner, he said. How had it gotten so dark, Francie wondered. Their flashlight beams cast yellow splotches on tree trunks, brush, leaves, branches. It was hard to tell what things were. Maybe we should split up, Francie said. We can cover more ground. Ginger, go down by the lake along the shore. Nels, you can follow along the path again, and I'll take a trail back into the woods. Stay within earshot, Nels said. When Francie was a kid, there had been paths leading behind the cabins into the woods. Trails to blueberry patches and beaver dams and deer stands and tree forts. If there were any trails now, they were very hard to find in the dark with just a flashlight. She crashed around in the woods for a bit and somehow stumbled onto something, maybe just a deer trail, but enough of a path to follow. She kept expecting it to end at a compost heap or a brush pile, but the path just kept going, and she became so absorbed that she forgot to call out or listen for Nels's shouts. All she heard was the wind in the trees, a whoosh, fading into silence, then another whoosh. But overlaid on this was a different sound, not soft, harsh, metallic. That same strange sound she had heard the first night, a rhythmic ka-chink. It seemed like a familiar noise that she should be able to identify, but she couldn't place it. She moved toward the sound, stopped, listened, moved again. It grew louder, and she drew closer, creeping so cautiously she was almost tiptoeing. If she'd been watching herself in a movie, she knew she'd have been yelling, "Turn around, you idiot!" But she couldn't keep herself from moving toward the sound. As she got near to the source, she turned her flashlight off and crept very quietly up the rise of the hill. Below her was a clearing, awash in moonlight, but in the middle of the open space there was a pool of much brighter light. It took Francie a moment to realize the light came from a headlamp worn by a person working with a shovel. Of course, she thought, a shovel. Now the sound made sense. But what was this person doing? Burying something? Or digging something up? Was he carving out chunks of peat to sell to Home Depot, like Jeanette suggested? Or was it something more sinister? Francie sneaked closer, keeping her eyes on the now kneeling figure. She hardly dared to breathe, because it certainly felt like whatever was happening here was a secret. There was little other explanation for middle-of-the-night shoveling. A shout behind her caused her to jump. It was Nels, yelling her name. At the sound, the shoveler looked up, and the headlight beam swung in her direction and swept over her before she dove into the woods. She ran, or tried to, crashing through brush, clambering over fallen trees, pushing aside branches. Was the shoveler following her? Glancing over her shoulder, she could see a bobbling light, and then nothing. It was as if the forest had closed in, almost protectively behind her. She stopped for a moment and stared into the dark woods. How was it that the woods that had so frightened her before now seemed to be actually helping her? Turning, she saw the faint bobbing light of Nels's flashlight far down the path. She raced toward it. "We found him," he called. "We got TJ." By the time they got back to Ginger's, TJ was tucked into bed with Ginger standing guard by the door. "Where was he?" Francie asked. "Don't know," Ginger said. "When I asked him, he just shrugged. Maybe he'll talk tomorrow. No more questions now. It's 2:30, and he needs to sleep." Francie and Nels walked away from Ginger's in silence. Once out of earshot, Francie said, "Nels, somebody's back there, with a shovel. Either burying something or digging something up. I don't know, but whoever it was saw me, I'm pretty sure." "You think he got a good look at you?" Nels asked. "Yeah," she said. "That, and you called out my name." "Sorry," Nels said. "Should we go see if we can find whoever it is?" "Really? Are you serious? You want to?" Francie asked. "Come on." Nels took her hand in his own. She could let that big, warm hand lead her anywhere. They retraced their steps to Ginger's cabin, then crunched into the woods. Francie looked for the path she'd found the first time, but even with 2 flashlights, she couldn't seem to find it again. "There was a path," she said, crashing through the brush. "Maybe over there?" More crashing around. "Maybe the other direction." Francie was so turned around, she didn't know what direction they were going. I think he's gone, she said. I don't hear that shoveling noise anymore. You're probably right, Nels agreed. They crashed out of the brush into a blessedly open grove of pines and finally back into Ginger's yard. I'm sorry about all this, Francie said. Don't apologize. Seriously, this has definitely been the most unusual evening, or night, or, he yawned, early morning I've spent in a long time. The yawn means nothing, really. Francie walked Nels onto the dock and helped untie the boat. The first hint of sunrise spread across the lake like a pink satin sheet, with small pale clouds tossed on the water like throw pillows. Are you sure you have to go? She asked. You could catch some sleep here if you want. I could sleep in the cabin and you can have the boathouse. I gotta be at work pretty early, Nels said, climbing aboard. I better go. You got a lock on that door? He asked, nodding at the boathouse. Yeah, she answered. Use it, he said.